MMA fans, welcome back to Carlo Prusa MMA. Today I'm with a very special guest, a reoccurring guest to the show. She's a former UFC fighter. She's done some BKFC. She's done some game bred boxing. She is making her return to the XFC cage once again when she takes on Rainn Guerrero of May 31st, Detroit, Michigan, XFC Grand Prix 2. Pearl, we're just a couple I don't know, 8 days out from the contest. We're getting close. Overall, what's training camp been like, dwindling down and getting closer to the contest?
Hello, first and foremost. Training has been absolutely insane. It's been a crazy, fun ride. Incredibly challenging, in every which way. But I am looking forward to just displaying all the skills and hard work. I thought my last camp was difficult. Like this camp is like literally times two. So it's just been like a fun ride. I really do appreciate all the challenges that are coming and being presented daily. And I'm looking forward to like seeing my growth.
Last time you were out in the cage, XFC, you took on Monica Medina in Lakeland about a month ago now. Big win for you. Obviously, lead up to that fight, you're talking about the importance of going back to XFC, a promotion where it first started. You're able to make your return to Glove MMA at that promotion. Now that you've had some time really to settle in and let it process, what was that win for you? Was that a big stepping point in the right direction here?
Oh my goodness, it was nerve-wracking. It was very, very exciting. I hadn't been inside of a cage competing in MMA in a couple years, so it was, there was some doubt, there was nerves, there was excitement, there was, every feeling that I could imagine. MMA has always been the sport that's closest and dearest to my heart. I love boxing, I love striking, I love jujitsu. I love it all, but MMA to kind of blend it all and put it together was has been my love, most of my life. So it was for a period in my life I felt like I'd never be back inside of a cage or competing in MMA. So that was like a big accomplishment for me to just step back inside the cage and test myself. And I was really happy with the results. Obviously, I there were things that I didn't like and things that I critiqued, and that's kind of what I'm here for, just to get better every single day. So I've been working on some of the things I didn't like that showed up in that fight, and just getting better every day.
The lead up to that one, a lot of people were thinking this is going to be a rock'em sock'em robot style fight that could be an absolute bloodbath, dogfight. You made quick work with it with the grappling and the jiu-jitsu. At what point in the contest did you feel that you were going to be able to drive the fight with your ground game?
Um, I kind of I felt that it was just in the moment. I was like, you know what, fuck it, let me take it to the ground. Let's see where she's at. Her corner kept calling for her to take me down. And so I think I allowed a little bit of my ego to get in the way in those moments. And I was like, take me down, take me down. And she was kind of scared to get in, and nor could she get in. And so I said, okay, well, if you want to go to the ground, let's go to the ground. And I think that it was a little more ego than, it was definitely more ego than it was discipline and game plan, to go to the ground. But I'm that the one thing that I'm most proud of is how sharp that armbar was, how quickly I was able to see it and expose it and also just take advantage of it. And that's probably my proudest moment in that fight. I wasn't too crazy about the striking. I didn't really like my striking in that fight, but that's what I'm here for. I'm here to test myself and get better.
You trained definitely over at a powerhouse at Tef Planet Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. How did you find that facility, and what does that add to your game and your jiu jitsu in particular?
So 10th Planet is a no-gi jiu-jitsu. It's not a Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's no-gi, and I trained at the gym that I'm at now prior to it being 10th Planet. It was called San Diego Combat Academy. And when I started training here, it was Liz Carmouche, Alima McFarland, and Chris Stanley, and then it was me. And we were like, we had a strong women's team, and so I was originally training with my coaches Manolo Hernandez and Bill Crawford, then Boogie Martinez came along, and then that's how we became 10th Planet. And Boogie just blew up. His jujitsu is amazing. It's edgy. It's kind of unorthodox. It's fun. He brings a lot of like his flavor with his breakdancing that he in his past to our jujitsu style. And in my opinion, is it's the best jujitsu for MMA. And so I've always loved it here. This has always been my home. I've traveled all over the world to train and had some incredible training opportunities and blessings. But when it comes to MMA, I feel like this is my home, especially the grappling 10th Planet system is the one that I've been studying, the one that I know the best, and the one that I love the most. So that's kind of how I got here. And I just kind of always come home no matter where I'm at in the world.
You've been at this sport for a very long time, and I think the casual fan doesn't realize how much this sport has evolved even in the last 15 for 20 years. There was at one point when Dana White publicly said that women would not fight in the UFC. Met Ronda Rousey, things changed, women mixed martial arts, huge part of this sport. When you first got into it, what were your overall thoughts of this? Did you think it would get to nearly as big as this, especially for women MMA?
Oh my goodness, no. So when I first got into it, the biggest fighter, the most famous fighter at that time was Tara La Rosa. And we hadn't had that big fight between Gina Carano and Cyborg yet. And so the sport was really, again, she was the most famous at that time. When I was competing in like Naga, for instance, there was maybe two women, three women in a bracket, in the entire bracket. So it was either like a heavier women's division or a lighter women's division. And there was no women. There wasn't a lot of women. In fact, when I first started competing, it was called NHB, No Holds Barred. It wasn't even MMA. And so just to be a part of the evolution and where it's at today, even to me, since the pandemic, it's completely evolved again, like twofold. And it's really a blessing, I think, to still be a part of the sport after all these years and still evolve with it. And that was like my biggest concern in my last fight was am I able to evolve? Am I able to adjust to this sport where it is today?
In addition to it evolving, more women fighting, one thing that I've noticed lately, you're starting to see even more youth MMA. I mean, you're seeing boys and girls at 11, 12, 13, 14 years old fight youth MMA contests. How important do you think that is for the growth and development of the sport? These fighters starting out at such a young age now.
I think it really is evolving the sport in a ridiculous way, actually. So when I was training, we had kids training, and it's really cool and unique to see them, a couple of them in the UFC, several of them in the UFC. Right now, Chepe Mariscal, he's in the UFC. He finally got there. I don't know why it took him so long, but he is so talented. He's actually had 3 fights so far. He hasn't been in for a year yet. All 3 fights, fight of the nights. He's extremely exciting. He's crazy. And I've known him, and he's been training since he was 6 years old. And so what is interesting is to see that generation of fighters, they're now in the UFC. Carlos Hernandez is another one that's been training since he was the same age, probably. We call him Pee Wee. Same gym when I was young in my hometown, Cicero, Chicago, in Chicagoland, and he's in the UFC. He's a 25er, and he's doing well as well. And so, that's where we are in the sport, right? They were competing when it was on the rise, but there wasn't like a solid future. Today, it is 100% guaranteed that if you train hard, if you work hard, especially at an early age, and you evolve to like even like a Ilya Taporia who's been training most of his life. You look at some of these athletes, Aaron Blanchfield. If you train, you will be at the highest level. It's guaranteed. And so they're fighting younger, which I believe is great. I had my first fight when I was 11 years old. It was pancration, and we couldn't get hit in the head. And I think that most kids MMA is that way. And I think it's amazing. I think that it's just evolving the sport. Look at the athletes today in the sport compared to 15 years ago. I cannot imagine and wait to see what the athletes 15 years from now are going to look like in this sport.
In addition to being on camera fighting, you've also done some on camera work, done some color commentary, some analyst work. You're a commentator with Jorge Masvidal's Icon FC. And when you look at some of the guys on that show, I mean, obviously the SD Dumas, the Bo Nichols, guys are already in the UFC. We have a couple more, Torres Finney, Malcolm Wellmaker. They're both set to appear on the Contender Series the next couple of months. What is it like? First off, what drew you to commentating that, and how do you like covering these regional guys on their rise?
I think that while I was in Invicta, TJ DeSantis, he's an incredible commentator. One day he was interviewing me for one of my Invicta fights, and it never even crossed my mind. And he just looked at me and he's like, "I can't wait to see you on this side." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "You're gonna be an amazing commentator. And you're so good on camera." And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" And that kind of, I think that lit the spark, or the idea, lit a light bulb about me doing that. And today, when I kind of look back in hindsight at my life, my aunt, who's a very big, huge part of my MMA career, she was in modeling since I was before I was born, and she put me into acting classes. She had me do photo shoots early on. She would have me practice on the camera. When we started my amateur career, she would, to try to get me to wear makeup to the weigh-ins, and I would fight her about some of these things, or wear makeup to my fights and stuff. And so she kind of molded me in the sense to be on camera and prepared me for being on camera. And so I think it's just something that came really natural. I think the being on camera, speaking and presenting myself in that way is very natural. And then when I tie in the sport, I've always been really intrigued by the whys. I don't want to learn a move because you tell me to. I'm not going to, and especially at this point in my career, I'm not going to do something because you tell me to. I'm going to learn this move, own this move, understand this move, because I've figured out the momentum, or the physics behind it. I figured out the who, what, when, where, why. And I've always been really intellectual in that sense with all of the training I've done. And so I think that today, that's one of my gifts that I've been given, is to communicate and convey the story of the fighter and their struggles and what they've gone through, because I understand that very well. And also to kind of tell the story of the fight that's happening in real time. I can do that. There's nothing I know more than fighting. And I feel like I'm really confident on camera. And so it just kind of came to me. There was an opportunity for Icon, the very first one that fell out. It was my very first commentating gig, and I was fortunate enough to like reach out to DC, Daniel Cormier, and I was like, DC, I have an event, my first commentary gig. I don't like, can you give me any advice? And he was like, he sent me his study notes. This is what you study, Pearl. This is your job. This is your purpose for being on camera. This is what you're doing. This is the color commentaries, and then there's the play-by-play. And so he kind of gave me an outline of what was needed, and I ran with that. And so when I commentate, I take it very seriously. Not only is it important that I tell the story, but it's important that I get the background. It's important that I am able to communicate this fighter's journey, this fighter's story, the style, etc., on camera to the people, because not everyone is as articulate as I am. And yeah, it's kind of how it fell in my lap. I love it. I actually have some really incredible gigs coming up that just presented themselves the last week or so. And I'll be working for International Fight Week. I'll be commentating a boxing event here in June. And I'm looking forward to Icon coming back, and Island fights. When I'm not in fight camp like this, I can go back to that. And so I have some really amazing gigs coming up. There's no doubt that when it's all said and done and I hang my gloves up, that I'll be on the other side, on the TV and the broadcast side.
Before your last contest against Monica Medina, you took some time off from MMA. You were in the world of boxing as well as bare knuckle boxing. What were your takeaways from that, especially the bare knuckle boxing? Do you think maybe focusing more on the accuracy than power with your strikes, has that translated positively with putting the gloves back on?
Oh my goodness, yes. I think that not only did the accuracy when I started and decided to sign up for bare knuckle, I moved to Brooklyn to train alongside Amanda Serrano for about a year and a half. And that was one of the biggest blessings in my life, to be alongside Amanda, to train with her, to watch how a seven division, seven weight, seven time, nine-time division, world champion trained in boxing and had been training since she was 11 years old. And so I learned a ton from her, not just through the boxing, but the lifestyle, the mindset, the where she was in her life in the sport, and how she has completely dedicated herself to it. And so I think that with that and those skills and learning how to own one skill, right? Today I had wrestling this morning, strength and conditioning this morning. I had my cardio this morning. I came back to the gym. I had pads this evening. I had more wrestling, and then I had jujitsu tonight. In boxing, you come in the morning, you do your boxing, and then you come back at night and you either do like your strength and conditioning, but you stick to boxing. That is, it's very detailed. It's very simple. It's very um repetitive, and not too many people, especially coming from an MMA background, that's really difficult to do. um but it's so detailed, their skills, these boxers are so skilled in boxing, and the way they turn their punches and the way they pop, and that was like really unique within itself, to kind of to study and learn and become a professional boxer. And then you get into a bare knuckle fight, right? And you get in these fights, these fucking girls are cheating. They don't, it's war in there. Like, fighting against Britain Hart, she like clawed my face and they're pulling my hair, and like it's savage in there. And I loved that about that sport. That really helped me own my warrior spirit and like love the chaos and be okay with it, and also know that I can handle fire. I can get hit with bare knuckles and be okay. And man, it was exciting. I really did love the bare knuckle fighting, bare knuckle boxing. It was probably some of my favorite fights were in bare knuckle for sure.
This whole bare knuckle phenomenon seems like it's really taking off. I mean, there's more and
Hmm.
more shows now. There's MMA bare knuckle, BKFC's getting bigger and bigger. And one thing I like to ask individuals who compete in bare knuckle is the difference between getting hit with a glove opposed to bare knuckle. And the common and current answer I get is it's just different. It's different. Describe maybe the differences.
Of getting hit or hitting?
Both. Let's go both.
So when I fought my first bare knuckle fight, my hands swelled up. By the end of the fight, they were not only were they swollen, but they were black and blue, and the bruising went all the way to my elbows. It took me about a month to get rid of all the bruising, and my whole forearm was bruised, from my hands to my forearms. I couldn't use my hands for probably about 2 weeks. And I just remember every time I was landing, it felt like I was hitting metal. It felt like I was hitting a pole over and over again. And it was just like my knuckles were stinging by the fifth fight, the fifth round. And then I didn't get hit much in that fight, right? So then the second fight, I fought Britain and Britain Hart, and that was just a war. We just had so much fun in that fight, her and I. And she didn't hit hard, but she was like very good at being gritty and like just a savage and cheating and just being like a dirty ass fighter. And when I remember her hitting me, you just feel the knuckle, right? You feel it's like a focused pressure. It's a focused um uh like being hit by something small compared to like a whole glove hitting your face. Even an MMA glove, you can feel it feels like a rock, for instance, compared to a boxing glove. A boxing glove's just a little bit bigger, there's a little more surface. MMA glove's a little tighter, but a knuckle, you feel the knuckles hitting you, and you'll get like bruises and stuff from the actual knuckles. And then I think for bare knuckle, it was like every time you get hit, you're like, oh shit, did I get cut? You're thinking that in the back of your head. Or if you feel sweat or you feel something, you're like, fuck, I'm cut. And because it's so easy, you don't need to hit hard to cut, and to be cut open. And so you feel it in your hands 100%, especially when you land on like the thicker part of the skull up here, or these bony areas. You feel it in your knuckles. And then getting hit, it's just like tighter. It's like a rock hitting you.
One of our mutual friends, Mr. Dean Toole, he has a bare knuckle promotion as of his own, obviously Game Bred Bare Knuckle MMA. Have you ever maybe considered getting into that world of bare knuckle? Me personally, with your jiu-jitsu background, I feel like you could be very successful and very deadly with that.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. I want to try all of the sports, as many sports as I can knock off of my list. I'm here. I'm competing. I'm healthy. I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm getting in the best shape of my life. I'm so focused and disciplined. I want to do it all, especially bare knuckle MMA, especially for Dean Tool. He's one of the most amazing people in the sport. And yeah, what's interesting with the bare knuckle MMA is I know how to throw my hands, right? I know how to kick and do all that without any pads and stuff. But I'm interested. What is it like to compete in MMA? With that and grapple and hit and the ground and pound and everything without gloves. I'm very interested. I would almost think it benefits a grappler without having the gloves on because you have better grips. You can slip and slide out of things a little bit easier. And so, yeah, I think I would do really well. And I do think that my grappling would be a strength in that sport for sure.
All right, shifting gears more back onto the fights. You're taking on Rainn Guerrero. Overall, what do you think of her as an opponent?
I think she's really, really tough. I think she's like a bull. She comes forward. She'll put her head down. She likes to throw. She has really good boxing, and good boxing technique. And then she also likes to wrestle and grapple. So I expect her to put pressure on me. I expect her to come forward. I expect her to be willing to box and throw and trade. And I also expect her to try to take me down. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see to fight someone with forward pressure. And if she decides to kind of sit back and counter, then we can play that game too, and then I can take the lead. But I'm excited to test my hands against her. She looks like she has really good boxing skills, and she's confident in her hands. So a part of me wants to find out who's got better hands.
Does the training camp differ at all from this one to the Medina ones? Because Guerrero might be a little more well-rounded with her skill set on the ground as well.
Yeah, I think that I brought in a wrestling coach that I've been doing privates with for the last month, twice a week, and kind of zoned in and really have been tightening and working on the details of wrestling defense and takedown defense. Um, but I try not to focus too much on the opponent because the opponent can change at any time. It's less about who I'm fighting and more about who I am as a fighter. And so these were skills that I need to hone anyways, and these are skills that I need to catch up on. Is the grappling and the wrestling and the transition of the ground to the feet. And so it was something that even if I had a striker and not so much of a grappler, I would have added and implemented in my training camp anyways. But yeah, the focus is I expect her to shoot on me. I expect her to try to get underneath me. She's probably going to be the shorter fighter. I'm not sure. She looks like it, but it says she's 5'6", so I will find out when I see her. But I do. She likes to fight tight and sit low, and she likes to come underneath, push you to the cage and take you down from there. So I expect that from her. Um, and my game plan is not to take her down. My game plan is to either when a opportunity on the ground presents itself to take it, if I get taken down. But my game plan is to kind of stand on my feet and stay long and fight this girl at my range.
A lot of times when we see two Hispanic fighters fight each other, there's a lot of grit there. There's a lot of spirit. There's often it could be complete wars. Do you expect this one to potentially be a dogfight that could be fight of the night?
Absolutely. I love dog fights. I think that I love to fight, period. But at the same time, I'm also here to win. And if an opportunity presents itself, I'm not going to take myself down levels in my game just to fight an exciting fight. If the opportunity presents itself, I'm going to take it. I'm going to win. I obviously want to finish, be it on the feet or in the grappling. I want to finish, and if a finish presents itself, I am 100% going to take it. But yeah, it's interesting. This is a great fight, like you said. We're two Mexican fighters and two tough girls. And what's kind of cool about it is I'm going to have my nieces this fight. They're going to walk. They do ballet folklorico, and they do folklorico dancing. And they're gonna walk me out to my fight, and they're gonna have their dresses, and they're gonna dance in front of me, and they're kind of gonna present me to the cage. And so it's a very like culture, Mexico, um Latina, a lot of love to my culture and to my roots, this fight. So I'm excited. I'm excited for it. I think that having my nieces walk out with me is going to give me some different energy. And having them cage side and nearby when I'm fighting, is gonna I'm not gonna say add pressure, but it's gonna give me a different energy. And so who knows? I mean, maybe it does turn into a dog fight. We'll see what happens that night, but my ultimate goal is to win and get a
You know,
finish.
by looking at both your records, you could tell that you're the more experienced fighter. Do you think that benefits you here?
Always. It always does. That's part of my not tools, but that's part of my advantage at this point in my career is all of my experience, is everything that I've been through in fights. And every single fight you learn something. Even in the fights that you lose, you learn something, whether it be about yourself, your skills, the fight itself and what you deal with in there. Every single fight, you take something away from it. You also leave a little piece of you in there, but you take something away that makes you better for the next one. And so, yeah, I do think that is to my advantage to this at this point in my career, is having all these experiences and these moments that I'll never forget, that I learned from, that I'm like, fuck, I'll never do that again. Or holy shit, that worked. I got to do that again. And yeah, those stay with me for sure.
The XFC promotion is going through a rebirth. I was very impressed with the show over in Lakeland. Obviously, you fought on it. What do you think of the promotion, and are you happy with the direction that it's going into at the moment?
Yes, I do. I think they have some exciting fights. I actually have one of my teammates who is just starting his pro career. He's a heavyweight, one to look out for. He will be fighting on this card as well. So they're pulling in new talent. They're bringing in some experienced talent and some established talent. And I like that. I think that the sport needs it. We need these feeder promotions. We need these promotions that are going to help give the younger fighters and the other, and also experienced fighters, an opportunity, one, to compete, but also to grow and gain their skills so that they can get to the big show. And it was, from the fight night itself, it was ran very smoothly. I thought the fights went well. The post-fight interviews were awesome. Production was good. And yeah, it did. I really did appreciate the way that the show ran, and how they treated me and my family. It was XFC is a great promotion, and they're still learning, and they're very new. Obviously, with each show, I know they'll get better. It's an honor for me to be a part of this again.
With the win over Guerrero, where do you think that puts you in the landscape of things? If the UFC is still a goal in your mind to maybe return there, do you think it puts you a little closer to maybe doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and that is the goal. That's always the goal, is to get back to the big show. Um, I do. I think that it should give me some eyes. It should, Mick or Sean, Dana, you know, um, put some eyes on me and let them know I'm still evolving and stuff. And yeah, she's just fought on Contender Series. Had she have won, had she have got a finish, she'd be fighting in the UFC. And that was why I liked this fight, because that's where the sport is at this level. So I'm really excited to see where I'm at against Rainn.
Are we seeing a different Pro Gonzalez now than the one we did in the UFC years ago?
Oh my goodness, a completely different Pro Gonzalez. I am so confident in myself, in my skills. My spirit is it's stronger than it's ever been. Um, I think that I've matured in many ways. I've learned how to really focus and remove distractions out of my life, and make fighting a priority. Make it take precedence over everything else, because this career is so short. And it's also the confidence of knowing that I can go through wars, I can stand on my feet, I can strike with anyone, I can grapple with anyone. And Yeah, it's 100% a different person. I was very unsure when I fought in the UFC. I was so nervous and just scared to show my skills in a sense. And those fights are thought about very often, the fights I fought in the UFC. And for a long time it was regret, and I held like some resentment against myself. But today it was just part of my journey, and it was meant to happen as it did. And why it's taken this long to kind of just make my way, if and when I make it back to the UFC, it's kind of it will all serve its purpose. And I'm looking forward to it, one fight at a time right now, one day at a time, one training session at a time, because it's so hard and difficult with everything that I'm doing. And we'll see where this takes me.
You just mentioned that as a fighter, you have a very short window to do what you do. And I think sometimes you see some guys, UFC guys, guys in general, struggle with not knowing when to get out of the sport. For you, is it important to maybe have those boundaries, have that set of, hey, this is going to be the time when I eventually depart from this?
I thought it would be like that, especially, looking at my career 7 years ago, 8 years ago. That's how I thought. At this point, this is when it's going to be done. But with every day that passes, my body is very healthy. I've been very fortunate to make really good decisions early on in my life, where I didn't party a lot, I didn't drink a lot, I didn't do drugs. I've always trained and stood inside the gym, and been good to myself in that way, and learned how to remove stress from my life and how to handle stress, and simplify my life. And so, because of that, I've been able to have a long career and a longer career. And on top of that, I'm still growing. Every day I'm still inside the gym, and I'm just eager to learn something new. I'm eager to challenge myself. When that, I think, is what's more important, is when that dies, when that's gone, and I'm not sad, I'm not happy competing, then that's when it's time to let this go and move into the next chapter. Because I still have I know, I'm so confident, I'm 100% confident that I have a future in this sport, whether it be fighting or and broadcasting or somewhere, anywhere in this sport. I know that I have a future in it. So it's not like once I hang my gloves up, I'm done. But I also know that I can only have my body the ability and opportunity to completely dedicate myself for so long. And that window is much shorter than however long I want to be in the sport, if I want to get married, if I want to have kids or any of that. Like, I'll have the rest of my life to do all of these things. The windows for me to be a fighter is much shorter. So for now, I just play it day by day. I listen to my body. I take care of my body. I take care of my spirit. I pray really hard. I've prayed really hard to be where I'm at today, and I'm just very grateful and honoring that. I'm not taking this lightly, or taking or living very like loosely in my career. This is 100% my focus, and this is my priority. And we'll see where it goes. And when the time's over, then I can go do whatever I want to do. I don't have to fight anymore. I fight right now. I fight because I love it. I truly, wholeheartedly love this sport.
All right, Pearl, last question for you. In a perfect world, what happens when you take on Rainn Guerrero May 31st in Troy, Michigan?
Oh my God, I get a knockout in a perfect world. That is like my dream, is to get a knockout. Um, but I think she's really tough. I don't expect to be in and out of there. I know that she's going to come forward. I mean, I hope she meets my hands where I need it. I know I have knockout power. I have the ability to put someone's lights out with one shot. It's being patient and finding the position. And I mean, I hope she is. I'm praying she's the one. I would love that. But just a win. I'm grateful for a win, an exciting fight, and a win.
All right, Pearl, I wish you nothing but the best. Thank you for coming on once again and talking to me tonight.